Hey folks, Reloading Bench back with you once again, actually doing something reloading related. So contrary to what this says, you can see it, it's not for 50 BMG, but when I got into the 416 last year and went after the Lee dies, you may remember one of the die sets that had some issues with some of the surface, and swapped it back out for a cleaner set, and this was a full-length resize. And because all the brass that I had at the time came from somewhere else and needed to be full-length resized so that I could ensure myself that, ensure that it was, and assure myself that it would be good to go, I was more than content with a full-length resize. Well, then as I started shooting my own brass, I realized that, you know, every time you full-length resize, you're really working the brass. And it's heavy-duty brass, but at the same time, you're still, not only are you getting a workout, you're actually working the brass quite a bit. So I thought at some point I was going to get a neck collet resizing die. And the only way to get that was to either go with a different brand, which then meant a different press, because the Lee dies are 1.25 by 12 versus other brands which are 1.5 or larger, depending on where you go. So I decided to have Lee make me a custom neck collet resizing die, neck collet sizing die. And it wasn't cheap, and I was also a little confused, or rather didn't quite understand why they were asking for what they were asking. So they wanted 2 case-fired chambered rounds, or rather 2 rounds that were 2 fired from my particular rifle. They asked for 2 casings and a bullet. So I thought, okay, I'll send that off, and this is what they sent me back. And this is the bullet that I sent them, or one of the bullets. And what I noticed was this doesn't go in, which is good. That means I'll seat it and it'll expand and it'll have a nice tight fit. So what showed up, I was surprised, was 2 dies, and the one that I had actually paid for, or thought I was buying, was the neck collet sizing, so that I wouldn't have to do full-length resizing. I would just work the neck and save time, effort, and brass, because the brass is expensive, it's hard to find, and not readily available. What was also in the package was a slightly different version, if you compare the two. Actually, this is a resizing. I didn't pull out my bullet seating, so shame on me, but I think you get the idea. Essentially a newer version of a die that I already had, the only difference being slightly longer and a different type of printing on the 416 stamp, but essentially the same thing. So I have a bullet seating die adjusted to this bullet, so I essentially don't necessarily need this die. But when I saw that in the package, I felt a little better about the cost of what the set was. So what I'll do is I'll turn this video off, set things up on the press, and show you what this does in action. I did take off the Lee locking ring that comes with it, simply because I prefer the locking ring that CH4D sells for about $10. That way I don't have to worry about accidentally slipping this up or down a little bit, sliding it up or down a little bit, as may happen with this, especially when I'm pulling it in and out of a case like this. So I will set up the press, or I'll have you watch me set the press up on the next video that we'll slide into. So see you on the other side in a minute.